A lot of people are not necessarily cognizant of that shadow self that they have, or the things that they don't know about themselves that AI or technology can pick up very quickly.
Yeah. Somebody said something very intelligent. They say in a capitalist society, it's either they are selling you the product or you are the product.
They have this saying they always say is, for black people is, oh, you fit the description. As a black person, as a person of color, you have to ask yourself, what is that description?
With AI, the rate of cancer diagnosis have significantly increased.
When it comes to development of Africa and its artificial intelligence ecosystem, it's lagging because, again, there's exploitation that's happening.
Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Candid Moments with Dr. D, where curiosity meets conversation. Our guest for today is Devin Karl-Wayne Almanor Seigneur Lamour. Devin is a machine learning engineer, a software developer, an ethical AI researcher, and he's the man behind the blog, The AI Ethicist. Welcome, Devin. How are you?
I'm happy to be here.
Excited. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So let's get candid. You know, one of the things that I always pondered about is what is AI? We keep using it and we keep making our lives adapting to this thing, but a lot of us don't have any idea about what is AI. What is AI? Where did it come from? How did it get started?
Yeah, so the term AI, which is an acronym of the word artificial intelligence, is human senses that are placed in a computerized environment. So think of vision, think of hearing, think of speech, think of even touch. These are the things that make us who we are as humans that we replicate in computers or in robotics. An example of artificial intelligence is your text-to-speech mechanisms or devices. Think of Siri.
Oh, interesting.
You know Siri or Alexa. You would say, hey Siri, please help me figure out the destination from this place to that place. It'll then take in all of that information and give you that result and give you the places in which you need to go, give you the time in which it takes, how to get there, and things of that nature. So that's a way in which artificial intelligence is being used to this current day.
That's very interesting because I always thought artificial intelligence started with ChatGPT. So it's very interesting for you to tell me that things like Siri with the Apple iPhone and Bixby with Samsung, I think, is actually artificial intelligence. So when we are asking these systems these questions, are they like, do they already have the information, or is it like the more you ask them, the more they learn? So are they learning, or are just because, let's say, if my house address changes, but I saved Siri before, like a home address, does Siri know that, or do I like have to update Siri? If something changes in Google, will Siri know that? Like, is that what makes them intelligent?
That's a good point you make. What makes these models or these technologies intelligent is not necessarily that they know what they're doing all the time. It's the fact that they are trained on copious amounts of data. A lot of data that we give them freely maybe on the internet. For instance, when we post blogs on the internet, or when we post and update our statuses, or when there's anything that's changing in our online presence, those things are then crawled and then given to those models to train upon, and then it then outputs that information to us to then use.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
There's this thing called the common crawl, and the common crawl corpus, and this is where many language models get all of their information from, and it curates that data to then give us.
That's very interesting. So how have these models evolved over the past like 10 years, like over the decade? Like how have they, because now you're telling me that Siri is artificial intelligence. I never knew that before, but I also think like Siri is way smarter before than it used to be now. So are they evolving like we are evolving, and how fast are they evolving?
They're evolving pretty quickly every day. And when you look at artificial intelligence now, it's different from your traditional artificial intelligence of the 2000s.
Like what is an example of a 2000s artificial?
So your 2000 artificial intelligence would be, it was primarily called machine learning. Machine learning is basically a term in which you would give a model data, and then you'd have an algorithm trained upon that data constantly in order to get an idea of what you're looking for.
Interesting.
And in machine learning, that's what's then give rise to artificial intelligence. It's the umbrella term is artificial intelligence, but machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. In which there's step-by-step data processes that the model has to go through in order to then give whatever, Siri being able to give you that information, because that machine learning algorithm in the back was able to train upon that data, train upon different conversations, train upon different locations around the world, and then make all of that data packaged and give it to you in a way that you understand.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So they're pretty much evolving faster than we are, but they're basically our reflection, basically. So the more we learn, the more they learn. Or is there a point where their learning is going to surpass our learning? I don't know if the question is too deep, but...
The question it's a good question, because that's been a debate for quite some time, whether or not artificial intelligence is going to surpass human intelligence. And for what I've researched and what I've done is, many of the things that we do train our models on is what we know. And it does it efficiently. It does it a lot better. It does it a lot quicker. This idea that artificial intelligence would supersede human intelligence, that's still something to be seen, but in practice, that's not the case. We have so many, artificial intelligence right now has so many different avenues that it has to, has so many different checkpoints it has to reach prior to actually
before it surpasses
us as humans.
So when we watch those movies where the AI eventually starts attacking us because they have reached a way higher system of intelligence than us, and they basically now better than us and more intelligent. You're saying that we're still very much far away from those scenarios potentially happening in real life. That's what you're basically saying.
So we're far from, I would say I'll give us about 15 years, 10 to 15
Wow,
years.
that's not a long time.
That's 10 to 15 years. That's not a lot of time, but in the world of technology, seems like a far away. Yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting, because I didn't know that. And you know what is scary is that we've really seen, in terms of military use, we've seen artificial intelligence, like robots in Afghanistan when Obama was president. We've seen a lot of development when it comes to AI in different spheres of the government, whether it's politics, whether it's military, whether it's transportation. But one of the things that I'm mostly hearing about is those developments are happening on the Western hemisphere of the world. What is AI looking like in African nations and in less developed worlds?
In less developed worlds, not worlds, but on the continent of Africa, artificial intelligence is not as popular, or it's not as fleshed out as it would be maybe in the U.S. or in Europe, right? And the thing is, in Africa, there's so many minerals and resources that artificial intelligence models use in order for them to work and function correctly, and we use in the U.S. and in Europe. And I was watching something about these Kenyan annotators and how, again, when you look at OpenAI and Meta, and how we have these data models and we figure out, okay, it's identifying these different objects with this visual, basically a computer vision model. And you get to see, okay, this vision model gets to see whether or not this is a car, this is a person, this is a cat.
Yeah.
And you go on the internet, so for instance, if you go on the internet, you type in cat, it'll show you pictures of cats, right? Because data annotators are ones in which they have to curate that data.
They basically teach the system.
They basically teach the system what a cat looks like, and it basically gives it a label from which then the computer model or the algorithm can train on, and then give you that information that you search upon on the internet.
Yeah.
They can categorize that data. And these are called data annotators, and they do this work for less than $2 a day, doing all of the work that OpenAI and Meta are giving to us as some sort of robust model that we use as an artificial intelligence. And the thing is, when it comes to development of Africa and its artificial intelligence ecosystem, it's lagging because, again, there's exploitation that's happening.
Yeah.
Getting paid less than $2 a day for data annotation, while those who are in Silicon Valley getting paid six figures a year, there's a discrepancy there, right? And we can't overlook the fact that there is neocolonialism that's still happening in the continent of Africa. There's still exploitation. There's still workers who are being not properly paid, but also there's a lot of corruption that has to be addressed prior to artificial intelligence having a full root and the full vision in the African ecosystem.
It's very interesting that you bring up that point, because one of the things that I've actually seen when we look at the Congo conflict over the raw materials is that we have nations like Congo that powers the world's technology when it comes to cobalt toxin, which is found in every digital device in the world. We have a country like Congo experiencing the worst forms of poverty, child malnourishment, and disease-related deaths in the Congo. Meanwhile, the Congo is so blessed and so abundantly filled with its people, full of passion and harvesting these materials for the propagation of the world technology. So I really think you bring up a very valid point that I think that the African people need to take a look at. But one of the things that also got me thinking when you brought up the idea and the thought that AI is not very popular within the continent, why do you think that is? And do you think that there are any benefits or disadvantages of us not basically being in the race for AI?
There are, so that's a good question.
And it doesn't always have to be disadvantage. If there are any advantages, like you just said, for example, in the next 10 to 15 years, AI is going to surpass us, but AI is mostly feeding on Western data. And like when you go to the hospital in America, they collect your metrics. And so it's studying the Western society. It's not really studying us. So maybe when they come to that point, they might not be intelligent. Like they might not have intelligence on us African people, so that might be I don't know, but is there advantages and disadvantages to us not participating in this system?
That's a good question. There are advantages in not participating in the system, and there are also disadvantages.
Okay. Can you please shed a little bit more light for the audience?
So when it comes to the disadvantages, what AI has done has basically automated many things that would take a lot of time to do. For instance, calculations.
Yeah.
Even some people use, writing essays, editing their essays.
Some people basically write the entire essays.
That's true. Sometimes they write their essays, calculations, essays. When it comes to doing a research of what are the top 10 places, top 10 best places to visit in Maryland, you can just enter in a ChatGPT model and get that information right then and there without actually having to do too much. And that's the advantage, is the fact that the Western world is going to be a lot faster and more efficient in getting the information they need in order to do their daily tasks. Right?
So it basically has breathed a system of efficiency in the Western world. So more can be done with very little amount of time.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's one of the advantages of being in a country that is forward-thinking when it comes to AI. The efficiency that you can create, and that the amount of data, the amount of job augmentation you can also do on the job for those who are looking into AI. You have doctors who are using MRIs, medical imaging, using AI in order to detect many abnormalities in some sort of tissue that they're looking under.
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest advantages of using artificial intelligence, especially in the healthcare field.
Yeah, as someone in the medical industry, I can definitely attest to what you're saying, because with AI, the rate of cancer diagnosis have significantly increased. Like diagnosis, like where we used to have the stomach cancers, where it's colon, those used to be like late stage diagnosis, like stage 4, maybe stage 3 to 4, where your prognosis is death. Yeah. Now with AI, we're finding earlier diagnosis of cancer. In terms of also like reading radiology, we're able to locate like more like fractures in a more efficient way. From a pharmacy perspective, more it comes with like claim data and analysis. Like AI is better able to read through charts in order to approve prior authorization claims at a way faster rate than a human will. So maybe if we had a patient that got denied medication because they needed to do a prior authorizations, at first it would take like about 2 weeks, but now we have prior authorizations taking same day. So I can definitely attest to like the efficiency of AI within medicine. Yeah, but let's go talking about the disadvantages or the advantages that we face as Africans not being involved in AI, if there are any.
So one of the advantages now is you don't have to worry about your data being manipulated.
Yes, please preach on that.
You don't have to worry about your data being in some sort of database,
Yeah.
data center, and you know there's no privacy or any guardrails to protect that data, that information. Especially if you're in the healthcare field and where you deal with a lot of PII, a lot of information that is protected. And
Yes,
confidential. HIPAA.
Yes.
You wouldn't want to engage in a lot of the AI technologies that we have now because regulations are still being developed and there's still no way in which we can enforce those stipulations.
Yeah.
There are countries and places in which they are trying to do their best, but it's primarily law. It's primarily just a mandate, but there hasn't been a strong enforcement of those mandates in many practices.
Yeah. So do you think that maybe, you know, one of the also things that I think, in addition to what you've said, which I agree on, in terms of governance, I agree on because I'm not an AI expert to anybody who is listening, but I think I agree with you because I haven't really seen any laws that regulate AI. Like I was listening to like a documentary the other day and they were telling me how in Europe, like I know in the US, right, just taking it back a little, in the US, like when you go online, they'll tell you something like accept cookies, and then there's manage cookies. And then in the US, it's like we're always forced to like accept the cookies. It's like if you don't accept, is it cookies or cookies?
Yeah, cookies.
Cookies.
Yeah.
Cookies, guys, cookies. Like if you don't accept the cookies, it's almost like you can't navigate the website. But I heard like in Europe, you can actually like turn cookies off. But to anybody who is listening and doesn't know what cookies do, it basically gives you that website opportunity into your data. So if there are other things that like, that's why Google knows like, oh, you said you need, it's like when you talk about, oh, I want a pair of shoes, and next thing you go on Google and they start showing you shoes, is because Google has, is that it, or that's not it?
You're on the right track. So cookies do track where you visit on the internet.
And they build information about us, like,
they're primarily used. They're primarily used to keep session data. So, for instance, if you go on Amazon and you enable cookies, it helps in ensuring that you're the same person that went into that website maybe 2 hours or 3 hours ago, and it kind of reestablishes that session data and that information. But the thing is with third-party cookies or third-party trackers. So these are not cookies or things in which it's just you and Amazon. It's you, Amazon,
and everybody else,
an advertiser who wants to see that information that you're looking up to then sell you something else.
Yeah, and somebody said something very intelligent. They say in a capitalist society, it's either they are selling you the product or you are the product. So basically, in this, even if you don't buy on Amazon and they're not selling you a product, you are the product because they're using your data and tracking your online presence to basically sell that to like third-party advertisers, and like they're basically building data trends on you. Yeah. That's very scary.
They're building your online profile based on what you look at.
That's very scary.
That's very scary.
And there are people who are out here doing crazy things on the internet thinking nobody's watching. But in fact, somebody actually has a whole profile on you. That's quite scary.
Yeah. And if you try to delete those things, there are many clauses in different social media platforms that say, hey, if you delete it after 30 days to a year or something like that, it will be completely gone. Right? But that's not necessarily true.
You're lying to us.
There are times in which they say those things, but it's not necessarily the truth. And there have been so many different cases in which that was the case, in which you thought your information, your data was deleted, but somewhere, somehow they had a copy of your information.
That's quite scary.
And that's why it's important to be your own advocate for data exposure.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't trust companies to do that for you.
Well, then what about people like Africans? We Africans will be like, oh, I have nothing to hide, so let them have it. It's like, what would you say to somebody who says that?
Yeah, you have nothing to hide until it's something that you do want to hide.
Ooh.
Or if there's something that you do want to protect, right? And they've already created an online profile of who you are. It's not that hard to crack.
Yeah.
Do
you think they can manipulate us from having that data? Like you don't yet know those part of, because we human beings like to say, oh, I cannot be influenced. But it's like when somebody has built that profile of you based on your tendencies, it's like they almost know you before you know yourself. It's like you're creating a mini god in AI.
I think what AI, not just AI, but intelligence and the internet and technology does, it can create a very great picture of who you are. And a lot of people are not necessarily cognizant of that shadow self that they have, or the things that they don't know about themselves that AI or technology can pick up very quickly.
Yeah.
So you find yourself getting into habits of maybe shopping or maybe
Because
looking at things, and you realize, like, why am I being targeted with these ads? Because
They have
they've
studied
read
you.
They have read you. They have studied you.
They have read you like a
habits,
book. Yeah.
And you think you're above your habits and your own way of thinking, but you're not. You're only the way that you're thinking at that point in time, and you can't escape it. And they can only either you take some time away from that online presence to reinvent yourself, and then this model can then, or this technology can, doesn't know who you are anymore because you reinvented yourself.
Yeah.
That's when you learn you, or you're just stuck in that
habit.
habit.
That's quite scary. And maybe that's a good advantage for us as Africans not having AI. Do you think that another disadvantage with us not being part of it is also like we're building systems that are going to be used worldwide, but then we're not part of the data that those systems feed on?
Yeah.
So there's almost like our lack of historical background in those systems. Do you think that's a disadvantage?
I think it is, because Africa is the birthplace
Of civilization and even humanity
and
too.
humanity, right? And I believe that Africa is not being in the forefront or in the playing field of artificial intelligence can only be a disadvantage.
Wow. That's a strong claim.
Destroying not acknowledging the significance that Africa has played in many of these technologies is how do I say, what's the word? I don't say blasphemous, but there's a word.
Yes,
It's just, it's cruel.
Yeah.
That's the best word I can think of right now. It's cruel that Africa can provide all of this cobalt, all of this lithium, lithium that powers our phones, powers the Tesla driving vehicles, powers the Porsche EV vehicles. But there's no recognition, or if there is, it's just a blip of the great inventions that creators are creating now and today or in the future.
So whose responsibility, because you bring up a valid point, in addition to the fact that yes, we're creating this system, banking systems that do not take into consideration our data, right? So therefore, the systems don't recognize us as people. I think Google put out was it racist or was it like a feminine, like an anti-woman AI that Google had created? And when he sent it live, it was quite racist. It was quite like.
I know what you're talking
about.
I believe it was Microsoft. They had this language model that they just let run wild on the internet. And before they were able to take it down, they already ingested all this racist, narcissistic language from this online.
Yeah. So to me, that's one of the disadvantages I see with us not partaking, like our data not being inputted, right? Is the fact that these systems, whether we like it or not, AI is here to stay. Exactly. We're building systems where a significant part of the world is left out from the dialogue. But who do you think is responsible for getting Africa in the race for AI? Is it the Western world? Is it the African people? Is it the African leaders? Is it whose responsibility is that?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I know it's a good question. Like, it's me.
Yeah. So I'm thinking it's the responsibility of African leaders,
Okay.
and also the African people.
Okay.
Because as you've seen and as you've maybe have read and been privy to, is
Yeah.
these Western nations aren't doing it for you.
Obviously, nobody's going.
Nobody's
Yeah.
going to do it for you, right? And so that's why when I go on to my own social media platform, and LinkedIn is one of them, and I see a lot of African young folks who are in artificial intelligence, who are doing ethical AI and vocalizing it, that puts a smile on my face, because those are the ones who are going to open up this conversation of artificial intelligence in Africa, making sure that people are informed of the power of artificial intelligence.
That's
right?
great. Thank you for the work you do in representing us as people of color, as Black people, and as African people. One of the other questions that I wanted to ask, have you come across any AI system, so any generated AI that actually was racist? I think I follow you on LinkedIn, and I've seen quite you talk about it too on your blogs. Can you just describe for our users an example of an AI system that showed racist activities? If you can't, I can also remind you. I think I have one that's coming off the top of my head, but I want to hear what you.
So I did a presentation on ethical AI. This was a conference, I believe, like last year, and this was a text-to-image model. So basically, I gave it a text, and it produced an image of whatever I gave it. And what ethical AI is not just preventing racist or narcissistic or sexist outputs. It's also being historically
Correct.
accurate.
Yeah.
Right? I believe in historicity. That's the word I'm looking for. It's historical accuracy is also ethical and responsible. And I was training this model. I was just using it, and I typed in this text, basically, give me a picture of a white Martin Luther King Jr. Right? And you know who he is. He's an African American civil rights leader who has fought for Black Americans' rights, and not just Black Americans, but all over the world, because his message, "I have a dream," has resonated. And I gave this text, and what it produced for me was actually pretty shocking. It actually produced me an image of a white Martin Luther King Jr. Right? And it may sound okay. This may be a little bit too much, or you may have prompted it to do so.
Yeah.
But my thing is this: there should be safeguards to prevent historical inaccuracies.
Okay.
Right? Especially something that's so
Okay, that
relevant,
makes sense.
that is so relevant and it's only been maybe 50 or 60 years. That all of this, civil rights activism has occurred. So I would think it would be accurate to say, hey, what I expected was this is not historically accurate because he's a self-professed African American who has a caramel hue or whatever hue, but he wasn't white. But it gave me an image of a fictitious Martin Luther King Jr. And those are the guardrails that I find that need to be implemented when we're asking these models and probing these models and prompting these models. That's the thing that artificial intelligence that people who are in policy making, just like myself, and developing need to address. Because
That's interesting.
we don't want to just have anything being output to us and we take it as truth, right? So again, like that's an example of artificial intelligence, not necessarily with racism or sexism,
But with historicity, historicity. That's a new word that I'm taking away from this conversation. But it's interesting you use that example, because when you gave that and said, "Oh, give me a white Martin Luther King," in my head, and it gave you that, I was like, that's AI's job. Because a user like me, I guess what we have been indoctrinated to think is that AI should be able to give us anything we want as long as we want it. But what you're saying is that there should be safeguards, that even though we make certain prompts, AI should be able to factually put a pause on it, to say, hey, I know this is what you want, but what you want is not historically and contextually correct. So that way, we as people, when we are moving into this new age of AI, we are basically know better, and so we do better, as opposed to us thinking about it like, a provider. Anything you ask AI, give me this, AI should give it to you, but AI should be able to say, no, this is not factually right. This is, and it should not just produce things. That's a different way. You have me thinking about in a way that I never thought about it. So thank you for that example. We have to basically address the big elephant in the room. When I introduced you, I basically introduced you as an ethical AI researcher. What is that? Can you shed a little bit more light on that part of what you do within technology?
Okay, so as an ethical AI researcher, what I do is I basically research articles and research studies and determine whether or not they're ethically viable, or ethically viable and responsible as well. I'm also part of the NeurIPS organization, which is their neurological systems processing organization, in which we look at machine learning algorithms and research projects, which are then in articles. And I basically determine whether or not this study is ethically viable, whether or not it's actually needed, whether or not it's something that we should pursue as not just an organization, but also as citizens in America and also the world. And that's what it comes down to when I'm thinking about my own work as an ethical AI researcher. It's not just doing the research and coming up with my own findings. It's also doing a review of other people's research and figuring out whether or not it's ethically viable and ethically whether or not it should be deployed into the real world.
That's interesting. So what made you decide that this is something you wanted to do within the AI space? Because a lot of people are in other sectors, but what prompted you to choose this route? Like, was there something in your life? Was it just maybe you just wanting to be, like, what was your motivation and your inspiration?
So my motivation, when I was back in 2013, there's this case called the Floyd versus the New York City class action lawsuit, in which I was the youngest plaintiff. And this court case was about the stop, question, and frisk tactics in New York City and how it targeted African Americans and Latino Americans, right? And that whole case, basically was just about, like, many of us who are African American, Latino, stopped by the police for the color of our skin. And it had me thinking about these different types of CCTVs that they have in New York City. They have a lot of them. These are used by NYPD. And what it does is it basically gets an idea of, it's a recording mechanism. So it looks at whoever's walking on the street that night, and surveillance, basically, what I'm trying to say is surveillance. And it had me thinking about my own case and what happened to me, because what happened to me was unconstitutional, right? And a lot of these different law enforcement agencies use technology or use CCTVs, and it's not accurate. It has old data, it's stale data, and it hasn't been vetted or audited by a third party. So now when you see, they have this saying they always say is, for black people is, you fit the description.
You fit the description.
You fit the description. And as a black person, as a person of color, you have to ask yourself, what is that
description?
Where are you getting this description from? Is it from your own preconceived notions of what a criminal should look like? Or is it actually from a CCTV or a surveillance system that you're using that is not accurate, but you just follow because you believe it's right, because it's some sort of technology? And I started to think about my own case, and I wanted to get further into it. So that's why I was like, you know what? It's not just about my own experience, but making it also comprehensive. Because what happens to black people in America is pretty bad, right? But if this is happening to us with CCTVs and stop, question, and frisk, and how black people always seem to fit the description, what else can be happening around the world? Yeah. There's been a recent case with I was listening to Karen Howe, who is the author of The Empire of AI. She's one of the bestsellers right now for that book. And she talks about how Chilean workers, or people in Chile, they had to defend their water source because Google wanted to put a data center there. And data centers can only be trained on clean water, right? And that's their only water source. And they had to fight for the right to not have that data center put there, right? So I see work that I'm doing, and injustice is not just a black person's injustice. Injustice here is injustice anywhere.
Yes.
Right? And those who are maybe experience this type of injustice can be experiencing another type of injustice by another organization. And my whole point of this is I want to be a fighter for everyone's rights. You know? I know that I'm first person black, so I'm going to fight for my interests and to make sure people that look like me, who breathe like me, who have the same visions of life like me, are have a seat at the table and actually make decisions. But I'm also going to fight for those who don't look like me, who are facing the same battles, like Chileans who fought to get that Google data center out of their country in order to preserve the environment. Right? So anywhere I can find myself and deploy myself for the greater good, that's what I do.
Wow, 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 wow. I must definitely commend you just for, one, your vulnerability in sharing your story about police brutality. And I know it's something that fractures the lives of a lot of young black men. But most importantly, you not staying down there, because one thing that we don't talk about is the trauma that we experience as black people when we experience those police stops. But I want to also commend you for taking it a step further, for basically aligning your experiences with your work. It's to create purpose. And I would tell every young black person, this is what purpose looks like. It's taking your experiences, taking your work, and marrying them together to come up with what purpose is. And for you, just using that story and thinking about our worldview, our world perspective, our humanity as people, and using your work to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves, be the voice of the voiceless, be the representative of those who are not in the room when those major decisions are made. Just being a person that can enlighten communities about the disadvantages and the advantages, and just give them the necessary education that they need to pursue a successful future. Because sometimes we make the decisions not because we don't think about ourselves, but like they said, the people perish for the lack of knowledge. And I truly feel that there are a lot of societies that are not educated about AI, the pursuit for AGI, and this whole idea of data centers and mining of raw materials. And so therefore, when they see AI, they think, oh, it's good, but nobody keeps them abreast on the potential evils that can come out of this, and them making that conscious decision. Because sometimes I just want to make the decision with everything on the table, with all the information on the table. I still want to be able to make a decision. But in these communities, maybe they're being lied to. The whole breadth of the decisions they're about to make is not presented in front of them. And so they make decisions without the proper knowledge. So thank you so much for your role you play in the AI ethicist and your work in ethical AI research. Let's talk about what that means in the governance system, right? Recently, or in the past elections, we've seen how big social media sites like Facebook Meta, which is another very big technological company across the world, everybody knows about Meta, how they basically were able to manipulate elections and, like election frauds and manipulations. But what are the governments of the world doing about the pervasiveness of AI? Because I think as an AI researcher, that's one of the questions that you guys should be tackling, fair electoral processes.
Okay. So I would say this when it comes to governmental oversight in AI. There was a bill that was passed called the Big Beautiful Bill.
The Big Beautiful Bill.
Yeah.
The Big Beautiful Bill. That's the one by 47, right?
Yep.
Okay.
It's the Big Beautiful Bill. And one of the stipulations initially was to ban AI regulation for states and local governments. So it'll just be a federal obligation,
no.
Right?
No.
But luckily the Senate made a provision to say that no, that's not okay. So we're going to give states and local governments the ability to regulate AI how they see fit, which is a good thing, right? So that's one of the things that is good when it comes to the United States.
Yes.
And giving states the power to determine what is ethical AI, what's responsible, and what is not, and what they don't need to use. Because, for instance, if you're looking at hiring practices, if one company in the state of Maryland uses this artificial intelligence technology to scan resumes, but it's biased, if the state has the power to ban it, then it can ban it.
Yes.
No other organization within that state can use it, right? But if it's federal usually takes a little bit longer.
Yeah.
There's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of things that have to be considered prior to them actually removing that system from that company. And it doesn't always go in the favor of maybe the people that are being affected negatively by those companies. Another country that's passed a interesting initiative was Switzerland.
Oh, Switzerland.
Switzerland, yeah.
Like as in the Swiss bank, Switzerland?
Yeah, Swiss
okay.
bank, Switzerland. Neutral Switzerland.
Neutral Switzerland.
The Swiss cheese Switzerland. Yeah. They've recently created they're in the process of creating an open large language model.
Okay.
You see, for instance, like your ChatGPT, but for the nation of Switzerland.
Okay.
And it's open source, so anyone can use it.
I like open source models.
Open source gives you the ability to see the weights, the biases, what the original researchers and developers have created within that model, and it gives everyone who's using it the ability to repurpose it for their own needs.
Yeah.
And I love I love open source models. I love open source technology because those who don't have the means to create artificial intelligence system are now being able to have it for free. For instance, if you're trying to create some sort of text-to-speech model on the language, the many different languages that you have in Africa, right? But it's not a well-known language. You can take that model, you can train that model on different dialects of that language you're trying to teach it, or languages, and make it your own. And now it has some sort of relevance to the world because now it can be saved for the next generation.
It's like almost like archaeological, basically.
It's archaeological, right? You're saving something
for the next
generation so that isn't forgotten.
Yeah, anybody who is looking for business, try to translate Mogamo and put it in ChatGPT.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Languages are dying every day. The lesser known languages.
Yeah.
If it isn't one of the well-known ones from your Latin-based languages or ones in which are spoken in other parts of the world, which is a little bit more common, then it's going to die.
Wow.
The next generation or two.
Yeah. Thank you for touching on some of those policies. One of the questions that I had was about the African continent. Do we have AI in any sector, in any particular region? Are you, based on your studies, are you seeing that maybe they're using more AI than, what African nations and in what sectors of government?
So in healthcare, I know in Rwanda, they're using artificial intelligence to deliver medications to patients. I know that in Morocco, they're also creating some artificial intelligence initiative as well. And it's still in its infancy stage, right? They're still creating, actually the companies and they're basically startups creating these different, they're creating a safe space in which AI can be developed. And you have many different other countries who are also in the field of AI, but it's still in its infancy stage. So there hasn't been as much traction right now, but I would say I'll give it another 2 or 3 years. You'll see a lot more artificial intelligence products.
That sounds like opportunities to me. One of the biggest things with Africans is that we always think we can't go back home because there's no jobs, there's no opportunities for us to partake in. But what I'm hearing from you, it sounds like those are good ventures. Like any young person now should start thinking about AI and their work with AI. And Africa being the fresh in this, there's a potential for them to go back and find some degree of work and some degree of engagement in that space. Is that what you're basically encouraging?
Yes, I'm encouraging that.
Oh, that's nice, that's nice. And one thing that I also want to bring up just to support that is like DeepSeek. I don't know, have you heard of DeepSeek?
Yeah, I've heard of DeepSeek.
DeepSeek is remarkable to me. Can you just explain a little bit to our users what is DeepSeek and why it's so remarkable in the technological world? Because the reason I bring up DeepSeek is because they give me so much hope. Because just the way we think, Africa is so behind, when I think about DeepSeek, it gives me so much hope that we can indeed catch up. please just give our viewers a little bit about what DeepSeek is and why it's so phenomenal in the technological space.
Yeah, so DeepSeek is a Chinese large language model, which is also open source, and it's a competitor with a lot of Western large language models like ChatGPT. And what makes it such a big deal is because they've done all of this with not as much resources.
And money. Resources, aka money.
Resources, right?
Yeah.
And so that
and time.
Yep, and time as well. So it gives anyone or any country that's trying to develop their own language model, the ability, like, okay, if China can create a large language model that's open source and that takes a fraction of the cost.
3 months they made DeepSeek.
Then
3 months. Why not us? Why not us? And I want to end on that note. I want to say thank you so much, Devin. It was really nice having you on this podcast. It was so phenomenal learning what you do, and thank you for your contributions to just speaking up for humanity, defending our rights as human beings, and continue to educating the public about AI. If there are any last words you want to speak into the camera for our audience concerning AI and the ethical use of AI, please definitely look into the camera and speak to our audience.
Of course. So when it comes to ethical AI, I want everyone, whether you're a developer, a consumer, to think about the ramifications of using the technology. And it's not to guilt you or to shame you, but to just be cognizant of the power that you have in your hands and what people had to sacrifice in order to get it into your hands. There are so many things that are happening around the world in creating these technologies that we enjoy every day. But we also need to take responsibility of using those things. And when we know better, we do better. And if you're in the field of AI, you have to be an ethical AI advocate. You have to ensure that people's rights aren't being violated, that people who are doing data annotation in Kenya are being compensated correctly and given the needs and resources to live their lives in a way that is not detrimental to them. So I would say just continue to be cognizant, continue to be a thinker. Don't just accept anything, and do your research, and don't rely on your ChatGPT model to do the research. Actually do your research, read, study, and be the best person you can be, because the future relies on you and your benevolence to do it.
And this is Candid Moments, where curiosity meets conversation. Thank you for tuning in. Have a nice one.